Thank you, sir. All right. Thanks for having me here today. First off, let me thank a few people. One, Scotty Bulliter, for those who may or not know him. He's been a huge supporter of everything I do, and he's the one who recommended that I come out here and do this talk. Sort of I think an unconventional keynote for this sort of conference, but I think he kind of sees things in a different viewpoint, so it's pretty awesome. Second, to Wes Ogilvie and Shane Hardwick, who reviewed this speech for me to make sure that I didn't convey too much anger. And obviously to AJ, Debbie, and everyone at GIMS and EMS today for allowing me to come here and speak. So yeah, I never really thought I would be in this position here. I think like many of you, I always felt like this was such a huge event, and it is. It's just massive. So I'm really just humbled and honored to be here with you today. So standard slide here. These are all my own views. I'm not representing the U.S. military, not representing Texas A&M College of Medicine, yada, yada, yada. So how do we all get here? Well, for me, it wasn't any sort of talent that I had as a young man. I think, like many of you, I've heard a lot of great stories about people who felt that calling right away to go into EMS. I did not. I kind of fell into EMS by chance. However, it was really EMS that kind of gave me that foundation, that drive, that desire to really know and do more. And along the way, my life's been kind of up and down and highs and lows and this and that. I think we all kind of do that. I did, though, start very, very low. So I really had no place to go but up whenever I started. Honest, I probably shouldn't have even graduated high school. I'm serious. So I moved all around the Midwest, and my family ended up settling in Bloomington, Indiana, which is home of Indiana University, and it's where I attended high school. And anyone who's ever visited these quaint little towns knows it's not much for a townie to do. So your options are, well, you can perform well, you go to school, maybe you go to college and you start your career, maybe you graduate high school and start your career, or you use drugs, perform poorly, become a degenerate strain on your loving parents, and finally, they force you, I think, out of high school with a GPA of 1.63. So I'm going to let you choose my initial path. And he says, I bet you won't become an Army Ranger. I was like, oh yeah? So either I was either dumb, stubborn, or something, or maybe a combination of both. But I said, well, yeah, why not? So I joined the Army in 1992. So I was just athletic enough, I think. I was definitely hard-headed enough to make it through the selection process for the 75th Ranger Regiment. And I successfully completed that process in the summer of 1993, and so subsequently assigned to 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment in July of 1993. And I'll tell you what, outside of marrying my really super hot wife, joining the Army was the absolute best thing I've ever done in my career. Something seriously sparked in me. It could have been my team leader seriously banging down my door at 5:45 every morning and just scaring the bejesus out of me. Or maybe it's just the right amount of discipline I needed. I was surrounded by people to my left, to my right, that would die for me on the battlefield, and I would do the same for them. In 1995, because I went in as 11 Bravo, I went to an infantryman because I just thought that's what you did. I was like, is everyone an infantry guy in the Army? I don't know. Seriously, I was that dumb. Seriously. But there we are. So 1995, they say, hey, we want you to go to EMT class. And I was like, awesome. And this was an accelerated kind of 1-month course. And at the end, we had the opportunity to take the National Registry. And my only experience, just like many people who took the course with me, had been what we call combat lifesaver course, or for anyone who never served in the military, it's essentially just a first aid course. I had taken that about a year before. So when the time came to take the National Registry, there wasn't real big expectation for us to pass this. And that's because the Army really didn't need us to have a certification to perform the duties that they wanted us to. but I did pass. I think it was like 72, but I passed. And I found that I really, really loved medicine. I found something that I felt I was good at, even though I scored a 72. But I felt like I was good at it, and I really, really loved pre-hospital medicine. So after leaving the Army, I stayed in the National Guard as a combat medic at this point, and I started working as an EMT while attending IU. So I moved back to Bloomington and went to Indiana University. My first job as an EMT was at Bloomington Hospital Ambulance Service, or BHOS, and was subsequently fired about a year later. Year and a half later. It wasn't patient related, I promise. It was some driving issues and maybe some attitude issues, but what 24-year-old kid doesn't have an attitude? But fortunately, I had some friends there, a guy named Tim Abrams, who had said, hey, Wishard up in Indianapolis hires EMTs. So I'd been working up there simultaneously, going to IU, doing all this back and forth. And so I started working at Wishard Health Services full-time once I was dropped by BHOS. I eventually would earn my degree in paramedic science in 2000 from Indiana University, IUPY in Indianapolis, and I began working as a paramedic at Wishard. And I really loved working as a paramedic. I loved it so much I kind of let some of my college courses kind of slip. And while I was there, I precepted for paramedic students, for new employees. I began and started their Sheriff's Department SWAT medic program. And there were so many great EMTs, paramedics, emergency physicians that I met there. Many of them kind of helped me understand the complexities of EMS and why we needed to improve it and how to potentially make them. They also helped me understand that sometimes it's okay to go off and do something else but still be part of our great EMS system. I had a lot of great friends and coworkers like my friend Shane Hardwick over here who continues to push the boundaries of what a paramedic can do within his community. So, first of all, any whiz kids in the house besides Shane? Woo! All right, there's three of us. Fantastic. All right, so I wanted to know and do a little bit more than what I had been. And I had a medical director at Wishard, some guy named Ed Bartkus. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Ed Bartkus. I know that he's been around a while. So a lot of people know that he used to be a paramedic, then went off to medical school, came back, he did his residency there at IU, and became one of our medical directors. He was such a huge inspiration to all of us, well, to me especially. But I kind of want to do the same. I wanted to kind of go off and come back and be a medical director and do great things. But I couldn't quite figure out how to maintain my career as a paramedic and do well in school. So I flying around for a couple of years. My GI Bill ran out, and then I was like, well, what am I going to do? I want to do more. I really want to go off and help out and make a bigger impact. And then someone told me, said, well, why don't you go to the Inter-Service Physician Assistant Program? I was like, well, what is that? So I did. I found out about it. It's DOD's PA program. So I applied in 2003 and started in 2004. I think this would be a great way for me to kind of make an impact, know a little bit more, and kind of grow EMS. So upon graduation in 2006, I reentered active duty, and I was sent to South Korea for my first duty station. And that was a fantastic time. I'm not going to lie, I had a great time. But let me tell you, since I left 75th Ranger Regiment in 1996, I knew that I wanted to go back, but I didn't really know how. And it wasn't until here I was as a PA in IPAP, and I was like, this is how I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to the 75th Ranger Regiment as a PA. And there was a PA who I trained under while there, a guy named Bill Doc Donovan. And this guy's a legend. This guy's a legend in pre-hospital medicine, for PAs, for military medicine, and go on and on and on and on and on. And here I was. I wanted to go fill his shoes. So I called and emailed and cold call everyone I could within the 75th Ranger Regiment Medical Section to try to get a job. And if there's one thing I know, that pestering people to no end will eventually get you an answer. Hopefully it works out in your favor. In this case, it did. In 2007, I had the opportunity to go assess again for the 75th Ranger Regiment. And again, I was just athletic enough to get by. And I was subsequently assigned to 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. I had Doc Donovan's job. What an awesome experience. So while I was there, I had really 4 casualty incidents that kind of changed my entire line of thinking. I mean, like I said, I've always been kind of looking at how can I make changes, how can I make an impact. But these kind of affected me in different ways. This kind of put me on my current trajectory to where I am now. All 4 resulted in the death of 1 Ranger, and there were multiple casualties. The first one is in 2009, when I lost the 1st Ranger within my battalion in 7 years. And this brought a lot of skepticism from around the task force, questioning whether maybe we missed something. Maybe my medic and I didn't quite do our job right. We missed something. And I'll be honest with you, so he got shot here, right side, transmedial sternal. I flew with him back to the cache, to the FST. They cracked his chest, had a huge cardiac pericardial tamponade, and then also had a penetrating trauma to his heart. So there's not a lot I'm going to do in the pre-hospital setting for that, right? So confirm the fact that, okay, we did the best we could with what we had. But so the platoon kind of came together and said, hey, these guys did everything they could. So they kind of quickly squashed that. But what it told me, I've learned from this, is that you need to gather information, all the information, before coming to any conclusions. And when it comes to medicine, you need to check our emotions at the door. Being objective is critical to making sound and valid decisions. Next one will take place in Afghanistan. On October 1st, 2009, Rob Sanchez stepped on a pressure plate IED. He was killed instantaneously. But 6 others were wounded, along with Corey Rinsberg. Now, Corey was blown into a canal face down in the water. And we went down there and we pulled him out of the water and we pulled him up onto the bank. And I intubated him. He had an open skull fracture. He had penetrating trauma to the chest. My medics performed some needle Ds on him. And he would go on to develop a great relationship with President Obama. And you can see he went, maybe some of you saw him at the State of the Union address there, giving a thumbs up next to the First Lady and being supported by his father. So at that time, I was carrying ketamine. But very few units had really been carrying that drug, so we were trying to get ahead of everything. Now, several casualties probably could have benefited from the ketamine. However, I didn't use it. Why did I ignore it? I think I was comfortable kind of using that fentanyl lollipop. And while there are no preventable deaths, when we saved Corey, I was still disappointed in my performance. The fact that I missed this opportunity to treat patients what I thought was the right way. I hadn't worked it into my training, into my protocols, into my practice. I just kind of put it in my drug box. And after this incident, I put ketamine into my practice, and I studied ketamine like it was my job. And I started to collect information. And I took this information, and we ended up publishing as the first ever data on the use of ketamine in the pre-hospital combat setting. Wasn't great data, but, I didn't really know what I was doing. So again, I'm just kind of fumbling my way through things. But I knew it might change something. And while it hasn't necessarily changed anything within the Tactical Combat Casualty Care Guidelines, there's continuous talk that maybe we need to kind of raise that dose because we're using those non-traditional doses for the treatment of some severe injuries. And it's all because I want to learn from my mistakes. Not only do I want to learn from my mistakes, I want my medics to learn from my mistakes. I openly share everything with my medics, and for 2 reasons. One, they should know that if they mess up, it's not the end of their career. Everyone messes up. I mess up on a daily basis. We think that, some people stand upon these, well, look at me, I'm almighty. Everyone messes up. And two, I don't want them to make the same mistake. So if I can share something with them that will eventually help them not do the same thing, then that's fantastic. The one that really got me was when I lost my medic, John Penny. I'll tell you, it's really, really agonizing to look into the eyes of a wife, of a mother, and tell them you couldn't save their spouse or their husband. Now I'm talking about strangers. This was my guy. This goes beyond combat. This guy was a direct reflection of my training and my supervision. Maybe you felt similar because, threat to EMS is real. You have the potential to be targeted simply for being public safety. And just like the soldiers, we kind of all live by a code, right? And we know the cost of that code, loyalty to each other. It may cost us our lives. To this day, I struggle and wonder why a sniper's bullet only caused me a minor injury, yet a bullet from the same sniper ultimately killed my medic. Maybe you've experienced similar. If you haven't, I hope you never have to be put in the position to where you lose your partner, a subordinate, a friend, and struggle with that loss. It is those left behind who truly know the weight of knowing a hero. I'll tell you the proof that we should work together and we can support each other came on October 1st, 2010. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I was on a MPAS cal in October 1st, 2009. So here I was a year later, back in Afghanistan, back in southern Afghanistan, except this time we're defending a compound and we're surrounded by the enemy and we're trading fire with the enemy. Now they're starting to lob mortars at us and we're lobbing mortars back. A mortar had already landed inside of our compound, but no one was injured. But that didn't stop Sergeant First Class Lance Vogler. Lance was the mortar platoon sergeant. So he was out there helping his men suppress the enemy. He didn't have to be. He didn't have to be, one, on the mission. He didn't have to be out there exposed to the mortar rounds. But he was. Because great leaders never ask others to do something that they wouldn't do themselves. Then ironically, an enemy mortar lands right in the middle of the compound, right in the middle where the mortar pit was. And I heard the explosion, and I heard the screaming. I ran out, and I saw Lance crawling from the blast site, and I grabbed him, and I pulled him to safety. And he's screaming at me, and he's trying to get some words out, and all of a sudden he goes unconscious. Blood starts pouring from his mouth. He had been penetrating trauma to the chest. I was doing needle decompressions. I had other people starting IVs, getting HPMK warmers ready, dressing some wounds, and then I did a crike on him. But that wasn't it. I had 11 other people wounded. I saw heroic men refuse care in order to render care to the more severely wounded. Men dressing their own wounds and men controlling massive hemorrhage. One of those severely wounded was Zach Grainer. And if it wasn't for the non-medic having the skill set to identify and treat the 3 common causes of preventable death, he might not be here today. So as I worked frantically on Lance, I placed a chest tube, and blood poured out of his chest. As I'm sewing in the tube, I looked up and Lance he's blue, he's cyanotic. I did something a little unconventional. I pulled out the chest tube, I stuck my finger into the incision, and I put my finger on his heart. It wasn't beating, it wasn't fibrillating, it wasn't doing anything. So I had a tough call to make. Am I going to be that guy that stops working on a casualty that people never ever do? They talk about doing it, but don't do it. We're still under heavy gunfire with the enemy. I got a medevac that's at least 20 minutes out, and I don't even know if they can land when they get here. This is the toughest decision I've had to make in combat. And I told everyone, stop working on Lance. We've got other people to take care of. And I don't know how to explain it was the right call, and that it might have saved lives, but there was nothing I was going to do for him. And it's sometimes hard for other people to understand this. And you guys make tough calls every day, but you signed up for it, just like I did. It's your job. So when the time comes to make the tough call, but the right call, you got to do it. So these 4 deaths raise a lot of questions in my mind. Am I here to do more? Am I supposed to be doing something else? It wasn't very difficult, right, for me to come to that conclusion. So I used their deaths as motivation to make others, to make myself better. And I need to find a better ways to deliver trauma care in the pre-hospital setting to save more lives. So since then, I've started medical school. I became chairman of National Stop the Bleed Day. Became a voting member on the Committee for Tactical Combat Casualty Care. I published several articles, started teaching bleeding control within my community and tactical combat casualty care to my fellow med students. And I was part of the team that put Group O low titer whole blood in a reality. We made it a reality. I even transfused the first unit myself. If I can just make an impact with like one of my classmates, who they can go on and save a life and make a difference, to me that's worth it, just the time and effort I put into these projects. Because I'm not looking for money, I'm looking for fame, I'm not looking to get paid. I'm just trying to make an impact on pre-hospital, potentially survivable deaths in combat and here at home. I've had the honor of working with some of the greatest medics that I know of on social media to try to help improve medical education for the combat medic, because they don't have a lot of great opportunities like you guys do. So from Next Generation Combat Medic, Primary, Secondary, National Stop the Bleed Day, Special Operations Medical Association, it goes on and on and on, to try to get out there and put the good word out and make a difference. So that's kind of like where I am now. These ups and downs, highs and lows, has all kind of driven me to medical school, right? And I want change, because when I see an issue, I can't help myself. I'm drawn to it, and I just have to try to address it. And it's an issue. My wife loves it, because it eats up 99% of my time. Ed Barkus once said, if you don't like change, this probably isn't the profession for you. So why should you want to make a change, make a difference? Are you more than ambulance drivers? If you don't want to make a difference, if you don't want to make a change, you're an ambulance driver. You have a unique job that only a few can do. You interact with your society. You provide care in situations that make other healthcare professionals cringe. You perform the job none other in our current healthcare system. You interact, again, with your citizens in their everyday lives, where the things are happening. And because you have this opportunity to interact with your fellow citizens in your community, you should want to have an impact, to make a change. Our healthcare system is changing, whether you like it or not. It's not about politics, so I don't care what side you're on. It's changing. And we don't want to be stuck in 1995 talking about crystalloid, pasta water for trauma, mask trousers, beryllium, right? You have to adapt. You have to change your approach. You have to recognize what changes need to be made and find a solution that's going to benefit your patients, your community, your pre-hospital medicine as a whole. You need to be a visionary. You need to see what is coming and what is needed. You may be wrong from time to time. Like I said, I'm wrong every day. But simple adjustment to that vision, you just keep on driving on. If you don't adapt to this changing healthcare system, you're going to be left behind. It's not going to wait for you. Your employers aren't going to sit around and coddle you. If they do, they're part of the problem. The legends of EMS we've all come to admire, the shoulders of the giants that we stand upon, are leaving pre-hospital medicine. In a few years, these great innovators of EMS are not going to be here. They'll be here, they just won't be in EMS. I mean, eventually you get to the point to where you can't, you retire. So they're not going to be here to provide that insight that we need, that drive, the innovation in pre-hospital medicine. This is where it's up to you. It's your responsibility to step up and take the reins and take pre-hospital medicine to where it needs to be. So where does it need to go? I don't know exactly where it needs to go. I believe we probably need to get fire more EMS based, and I think there's probably a lot of people that agree with that. But I know what we don't need, right? So I'm throwing out EMS, I'm sorry to say, we have some apathy, laziness, and ignorance, none of which belong in pre-hospital medicine. And I'm not here to point fingers at anyone, but certainly we've all witnessed throughout our careers the kind of EMS professional that just kind of rides it out. Doesn't mean they don't necessarily care about their patients or they can't provide good care for the patients. It does mean they kind of continues in the cycle of just kind of do the same thing over again. Hey, you got that crystalloid we can hang on this gunshot wound? So if you're apathetic about EMS, get out. If you're lazy, it probably reflects in your patient care. Get out. If you're ignorant, meaning you lack the knowledge base and the background to do the job well, we can fix that. We can educate you. But if you choose still not to participate and become better, you probably need to get out too. We need to expand our definition of what EMS is. It's much more than that. That's why I call it pre-hospital medicine. Our entire educational approach to pre-hospital medicine needs to change. Completing less than 200 hours of education does not make you the pinnacle professional achievement. The paramedic education needs to be more rigorous, more requirements, different tracks. We've pigeonholed ourselves in the back of an ambulance for way too long. There are so many unanswered questions about what a paramedic can do and should do in the pre-hospital setting. Nick Zuber, for example, he's taken pre-hospital education to the next level, working on his doctorate in emergency and disaster management. He's also a practicing paramedic, state coordinator for Team Rubicon, works part-time for Dark Angel Medical. He's got a vision of what pre-hospital medicine should be, and he's actively trying to change it. Change is good. It needs to happen. If you feel that change is something that is left for in-hospital care, you may be part of the problem. So if you don't know, most healthcare professionals have kind of steadily increased their educational requirements. A lot more BSNs now. Instead of pharmacists, we see PharmDs. Instead of PTs, we see DPTs. Instead of NPs, we see DNPs. And if you look at physicians, most of them now are really being driven towards doing a fellowship. So I'm not saying that being a paramedic needs to be a master's or doctorate level education, but I don't think it's a stretch to say we should have about a bachelor's degree education equivalent. And the E&P curriculum needs to be extended by a couple hundred hours. So hairdressers, we have about 1,000 hours. Cut hair, you have to have 1,000 hours. EMT, 120? That's just facts. Cut hair. So, again, we need to change. And you guys practice medicine, and your education should reflect it. You evaluate a patient using subjective and objective means. You come up with an assessment and plan, and you treat accordingly. How's that not practicing medicine? I don't want to hear anyone say, we don't practice medicine, or you guys don't practice medicine. It's malarkey. So a lot of great pre-hospital professionals in this audience. And you guys, seriously, a lot of people do a fantastic job in so many ways. Again, I'm not here to point fingers at anyone because I've been part of that problem. I have absolutely been a problem. And at some point in careers, we're all part of the problem. But you either recognize it yourself or get called out. And if you get called out and get defensive, you may be on the left side of the Dunning-Kruger curve. Pre-hospital medicine needs fewer heroes and more clinicians. So you may be thinking to yourself, this sounds great, if anyone's actually still listening after that tirade. But, how do I actually make a difference? How can I actually do this? A lot of people sometimes feel held back. And there are a lot of new and upcoming programs out there. So my friend Shane Hardwick over here, he's in Annapolis. He was kind of looking for something different to do. So he was kind of given a rough outline of a community outreach project as a collaborative effort between the Indianapolis Police Department, or Metropolitan Police Department, I should say, Indianapolis EMS. So he was given this kind of rough outline. So he defined the problem, refined the plan, and then executed. His partner and him have made a huge impact in his community. And I got that. That's an N equals 1 sort of thing. I got it. It's just one example. But it's an example of innovation, foresight, vision that's required for pre-hospital medicine. Because of your efforts, we're starting now to see a career ladder in EMS. It doesn't have to be about riding in the back of an ambulance your entire career. Not that there's anything wrong with it. If you want to be in the back of an ambulance your career, go for it. It's awesome. But we lose a lot of people because they feel stuck. To quote Shane, you can't expect to retain talented individuals for a 30-year career without variety. So just like Shane, his approach to the medical directors to seek out something different than a standard paramedic, it takes that cold call, that approach to your medical directors, to your supervisors to do something more. Because at the end of the day, it's that persistence and that perseverance that will make you successful. In order to change something, something has got to spark. Something has got to say, I need to do something else. I need to change this aspect of pre-hospital medicine. Because success is a learned behavior. You have to pick and choose which habits are going to make you successful in the pre-hospital medicine. There's no one solution for it. Either fight it yourself or get it through a mentor. Which brings me to a point that we simply do not have enough professional mentorship options in the pre-hospital medicine. So if you're an older, more experienced paramedic, are you reaching out to these younger pre-hospital paramedics, pre-hospital medicine professionals, and help bring them up in the right way without any ridicule or condescending talk or insults? Because it does happen. I remember being that young paramedic. There's other ways that we're kind of addressing our changing system in pre-hospital medicine. We're witnessing in the way we kind of teach our skills and sustain our knowledge. Free online access to medical education, or FOMED, is alive and well and continues to grow, and honestly, is just fabulous. I love it. There's so many people out there on the internet and social media offering valuable information and to improve pre-hospital medicine as a whole. Paramedics Wes Ogilvie and Brian Bing are very active on social media. And with a simple keystroke, they reach thousands of people. That's just impressive, and I think just speaks so much about the positive side of social media. If you can stay away from all the drama. I think the most important trait anyone practicing medicine can have is curiosity. I love this meme, I'm not going to lie. It kills me every time I see it. But the most important question you can ask is why? It's going to open up things for you. It's going to open different aspects of medicine, different things you never even thought about or were familiar with. I kept asking why. I still ask why. Look at me, I'm 45 years old and a second-year medical student. What am I going to say? Hey, all right, that's cool. Never. I'm not going to stop. Some say I may take a more traditional path. Maybe so. But I had a lot of factors that kind of had an impact on that, and including how I ask why. I can't believe the number of physicians who started their career as a paramedic or EMT are working now in their current field. So maybe pre-hospital medicine isn't the necessarily the career destination for you, and that's okay. Because if you should go and do what you feel would make you successful and happy and have an impact. An impact within your community, because that's most important, your community. Find something you're happy doing every day. If you're not having pre-hospital medicine, there's nothing wrong with admitting it. Nothing wrong with saying, all right, yep, this isn't for me, I need to go do something else. You can leave, maybe something else in the medical field, maybe something completely different. Admitting it isn't a weakness, it's a strength. It's a sign of strength for you to be able to admit that this is not the place for me. Or maybe you would like to make a difference like me, right? And you want to go and chase after your dream of doing this or that, there's nothing wrong with that either. So go be a doctor, go be a PA, go be a CRNA. Do something that's going to change the way how you affect pre-hospital medicine and how you can maintain a happy and successful career. How about be like Wes? So Wes was an attorney and then became a paramedic. You could go and be a paramedic. Now you go to law school. And you could go out and affect the change that's needed on the legal and political side of things, because I was sitting backstage, I heard all sorts of talk about how that needs to happen. So we need more people out there who can go out and make that difference on that side of the house. So I've been really fortunate to be involved in both military and civilian pre-hospital medicine. And we've been able to kind of share a lot of lessons learned from our combat, from what we did in combat. But we still have a lot more to do, right? So I spoke earlier about National Stop the Bleed Day, which is nothing more really than an extension of the Stop the Bleed program. And we're not officially part of it. We're just like a bunch of medics that were like, hey, we should be doing something about this, because they originally built it as kind of a grassroots kind of initiative. So we like to help bring more awareness to the civilian community about how they can help decrease the amount of potentially survivable deaths. Just like we did in the 75th Ranger Regiment, we should teach all bystanders how to be able to identify and treat life-threatening hemorrhage. Did you know that bleeding control course can be completed in about an hour? How about this one? In 2014, of the 147,000 trauma deaths, 20% or 30,000 people could have survived with the right treatment. And the majority of these deaths were hemorrhage, because, we can't be there all the time. Just like I was in there to treat a lot of my casualties, it was a non-medic who was able to identify and treat those life-threatening injuries. So let's start off something simple. Who's maybe working with their local police department to reach out to them and teach them how to identify and treat the 3 most common causes of preventable death? Because the way I see it, every cop a ranger. There's no reason why I can't teach a police officer to stop hemorrhage, put an MPA in, put it on a chest seal, and put a needle in someone's chest. I mean, it's really, those are 3-4 simple skills. Because I found a lot of tragedies that we can improve the end state by ensuring others do not suffer the same fate when we cannot get to them. And to go beyond, like, say, basic life-saving skills like hemorrhage control, what about other ways we can learn from what the military has done? When we look at the use of blood products in pre-hospital setting, how many people get the sneer and condescending remarks and snickers? We get it from inside the hospital, we get it within our own profession. We even got the same thing on the active duty. Said, there's no way you're going to put low titer whole blood in a pre-hospital setting. We know whole blood's superior. We know that pasta water kills our patients. Yet we still have people who go out and advocate for it. But again, the perseverance, the determination is what helped us become successful. And this resulted in the implementation of the Grupo low titer whole blood program that's now been replicated in multiple different countries by different militaries, and within our own pre-hospital system here in the United States. We know Harris County ESD 48, Mr. Eric Bank. We know that Ren Neely, Cypress Creek EMS, got together John Holcomb, and they put Grupo low titer whole blood on ground ambulances down the Houston metropolitan area. I'm sure most people have heard of this. You can read about it in this month's edition of GEMS. I'll tell you another area that you want to watch, REBOA, resuscitative endovascular balloon occlusion aorta. If you don't know what it is, you can look it up. But I'm going to put it in the pre-hospital setting, and I'm going to make sure that eventually paramedics can do this skill here in the United States. I'll tell you, within the public safety realm, it's virtually impossible really to do anything by yourself. So I have trying time, but most of us kind of work within a hierarchy where we have leaders, when we have a team. That's good. That's appropriate. I mean, we couldn't have accomplished our 0 preventable pre-hospital death rate in the 75th Ranger Regiment without the support of the command and the non-medic. You have to help your management, your supervisors, and or your employees or your subordinates to understand the importance of what you want to accomplish. You have to help them understand by supporting your efforts, there is going to be a positive outcome, there's going to be an increase in community awareness, there's going to be better outcomes within your service, there's going to be better sustainability within your career field, whatever it is. And there are people out there who can make that happen, who can help you make it happen. You have to lean on them. At the same time, for anyone who's a supervisor or manager or a leader out there, you have to support your employees. They may feel it's a calling to pre-hospital medicine, but unless there's an incentive for them to stay where they are, they may find a new place to work. Yeah, it may be about something about making a wage, but honestly, at lower wages, you can still retain them with proper recognition and rewarding those who perform well. If they know they're appreciated, it creates loyalty. In return, builds camaraderie, teamwork, sustainability. All of which are reflected in better patient care and better outcomes in your community. For those of us, or those of people who say, hey, they should just be happy saving a life, are either lying to themselves or have never been a leader and knows what it takes to sustain your employees, your subordinates. So many people in pre-hospital medicine don't know how they can make a difference, don't think they can make a difference. Now, I think it's about shaking it up. Questioning the status quo. Sometimes you're going to rub people the right way most of the time because people don't like change. A lot of people don't like change. That's not everyone. But yeah, you're going to rub people the wrong way. And just because they say, well, this is the way we've always done it, doesn't mean it's right. Find others in pre-hospital medicine who want to make it better. And don't settle. It may be hard to influence change for the better by yourself, but as you build that team, you'll have an impact that will result in more lives saved and a better community. So what are you going to do to change pre-hospital medicine? Thank you.